right, can everybody see me and hear me? If you could just write on there, that'd be great. And we'll get started once I get some confirmation that people can hear me. All right, thanks, John. All right, so those of you this is your first time here, just want to go over a couple things. We are coming at you live from my home office. I do have a dog. I am at home. This is my home office, so there will be a possibility that I may have to, like if somebody comes to the door or something like that, I may have to go check on that. So just wanted to let you guys know that for the customization of the settings for the emails, if you don't want to get emails, be sure to go in there and mess with your settings in there and uncheck the days that you don't want to get emails. If it's check marked, that means you're going to get notification emails. Hopefully you guys are all getting those at the right times and everything. I know we had a little bit of trouble in the beginning with that. And then if you're having any issues with that, be sure to email support, and somebody will help you for sure. Most likely be me right now. So, and then the next thing I wanted to go over was, so I noticed there was a ton of questions that were submitted before we even got started. So I'm going to be starting with the questions. I'm actually going to be starting with James S. right here. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to make sure I'm answering questions for those of you who are here live with me right now. So if you posted a question before we started and before any of these confirmations that people can hear me, go ahead and post those again. So that way I know that you're here and I'll answer your question. These aren't being archived right now at the moment. So, so if you would, if you want to stick around and get your question answered, that'd be great. So I'll go ahead and get started here. And I will also, for this first week here, I know they've asked me to stay a little bit longer just because we know there's going to be quite a few people here to begin with. So, if we're getting toward the end of the hour and there's still a lot of questions to be answered, and I'll stick around and answer a few more. So don't worry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and start out with James S. here. He said, will you explain the setup in physics of ball trajectory, hitting high, low, right, left, etc.? So, I mean, I could go the entire hour and talk about that, but I will basically do my best here to talk a little bit about what's going on there. So as far as ball flight is concerned, I'll try to kind of compress this down because, like I said, I can go on forever about it. Basically, the face is going to, the face angle. So that's the direction the club face is pointing. So if I have, I'll use this here. This will be, so if you have, let's pretend that this putter is the putting face, right? So the direction that this putter is facing is going to be where the ball starts. So let's pretend this is a normal club face. So if the face is open, that ball's going to start to the right. If it's closed, it's going to start to the left, assuming you're right-handed. And then it's going to curve away from the club path. So the club path is so that's like an in to out or an out to in swing. When you hear people talk about that, that means they're talking about the club path. So a club path that's out to the right, if the face is close to that path, it is going to hook. So that ball is going to start mostly in the direction of the club face and then curve away from the club path. And then there's something that's called gear effect. So gear effect, let me grab a golf ball. So I have a golf ball here, and gear effect is basically what that means. The easiest way to think about it is wherever you strike the ball on the face, it's always going to tend to want to roll toward the center of the face. So if you hit it dead center on the dead center part of the face, it's already in the center, so it can't roll toward the center anymore. There's not going to be any gearing going on. Whereas if you hit it out on the toe, that ball is going to tend to want to curl toward the center of the face, and that's going to put hook spin on it. And then if you hit it on the heel, it's going to tend to want to fade. It's going to roll toward the center of the face, and it's going to tend to want to fade. Now, if you hit it higher up on the face, It's not going to necessarily roll toward the center, but it is going to reduce the amount of spin. You're not going to be able to take spin. You're not going to be able to top spin the ball, excuse me, because the face has loft on it. So it's just going to reduce the spin. And then if you hit it lower on the face, it's going to crawl up the face, and that's going to add spin. So if you notice, if you hit the ball lower on the face, a lot of times you'll see, especially a drive, you'll see that ball start out really low, and then it'll kind of balloon up in the air. So that's kind of the physics of what's happening at impact. And then what happens with the golf ball is why it curves is if you think about it, if we think about this club being the axis, the club shaft here being the spin axis. So when that ball curves to the right, that means that the spin axis is going like that. So when you hit that ball on the heel, the gearing causes the spin axis in the air to tend to want to do this. And if you hit it out on the toe, that spin axis is going to tend to want to do that. So it's like the wings of an airplane. It's going to, if you're flying an airplane and you go like this with the wings, it's going to veer off to the left. And if you go like that, it's going to veer off to the right. So, and when you add spin, right, it's going to kind of balloon up in the air. So that's basically what's happening with ball flight. So hopefully that helps you with trajectory. Hitting it high, low. If you want to hit it high, the best way to do it is to add loft to the face and to hit it higher up on the face. Because the higher you hit it up on the face, the higher it will launch. Same thing with hitting it low. If you want to hit it low, the best way to do it is to de-loft it. De-loft the face as much as you can. So getting forward shaft lane and then hitting it right and left. If you're trying to draw and hook it, that's all about controlling your face to path and getting the ball to start in the direction you want. And then you swing your club path in the direction opposite of the way that you want it to curve. And these are all things in the ball striking masterclass. If you really want to dig deep into that, you're going to want to go through our ball striking masterclass. That's really it's going to not only teach you all these things that I just kind of talked about, which I compressed that in like 5 minutes. This is a 90-day course where you're going to learn a ton more about it. And you're also going to learn how to do it. You're going to be given drills on how to control those things. And it's just going to make you a much better player in general. All right. So James H here says, raise up in the downswing with irons, not driver. Okay. So hard to say exactly why that might be. The driver is a longer club. It's a substantially longer club. So I actually have a driver over here and a wedge, so I can kind of show you the big differences here. So if we look here, I'm not sure if you can see this. You can see the top of the clubs anyway. But you can see here, I have a wedge. It's right here. I got a wedge, and I have a driver. And if I have them side by side, you can see how much longer that wedge is, or that driver is, than that wedge. So that means when we're standing here, we're going to stand a little bit more upright in our stance than we would with a wedge. We're going to bend a little bit more over. So sometimes, if you have kind of weak glute muscles, or you just have it's just more comfortable for you to stand up, what may happen is that when you're set up with a wedge, since you're more bent over, you're going to stand up more. So it's just a matter of being more mindful of staying in your posture when you're with your wedges. So what I'd recommend doing, there's a great drill on the website. It's called the shoulder to shoulder drill. We also have an early extension series that I would recommend checking out. But with that shoulder to shoulder drill, what you're going to do is you're going to set up with a club across your shoulders. And as you're turning back, you're going to focus on keeping that butt end of the club pointing down toward the ground. So that way you're not raising up. Because if you're going like this, you're going to have to come back down in the downswing to get to a good impact position. So I would definitely check out it. Use the search engine on the website. I'm not sure if you can see it on this page, but in the upper right-hand corner of about any web page on the website, there's a search bar, and it works surprisingly really, really well. If you search about any key term, you're going to find all kinds of stuff you can use. So go and search shoulder to shoulder. The word T-O, shoulder to shoulder, not the number, shoulder to shoulder, and you'll be a great drill there. It's something about hitting your irons pure or something like that. That drill in that video, I would do that with your irons and everything, and that's really going to help you to stay in your posture as you're going up to the top. All right. So Jim F says, first, thanks for the response to my earlier email. Thought I'd sit in for a while. All right. Sounds good. I don't remember. I answer a lot of emails, so I apologize if I don't remember the email that I answered, Jim. But moving on here to Mark S. says, hello, I'm new to Top Speed Golf and Clay's video, so welcome to the website. Excited to have you with us. The 1.5 level 1 test, stable fluid spine, says to do 3,000 reps of the 2 wrong ways and the right way. My question is, if I'm building muscle memory, how does my muscle memory know which is correct? I was thinking of doing the right way at 1,000 reps and 2 wrongs at 250 reps and incorporating them during the right way. Hope that's clear. So essentially, first of all, about muscle memory, that's probably not the best choice of words there. I think it's just kind of what everyone's used to. Your muscles don't have brains, right? So your muscles can't think or do anything. All they do is help your bones or your skeleton move. What you're building is you're actually building. It's in your actual brain that you're building it. So, and you're teaching yourself to send the signals to your brain. So what Clay is going over there, doing it the wrong way. It's something that's called variability training. So what it does is if you go both ends of the spectrum. So one end of the spectrum being way too much spine tilt one way, and then the other end of the spectrum having way too much spine tilt the other way. What that does is it gives you an overall feeling of where center is. So a better example to maybe help you understand exactly what it is. So they did this study on people shooting free throws, and they had people shoot free throws from the exact same spot, doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. It's repetition over and over and over. And then they studied people who shot from various spots that were around where the free throw it was. So they shot from in front of the free throw line, further back behind the free throw line, further to the right, further to the left. And this is this kind of same kind of thing. They're not teaching a free throw, the exact same free throw, but they're teaching, the vast array of it. So what they found was the people who shot all the different ones actually did much better, and they had much better retention because they taught themselves to adjust and were able to shoot the shots much better. So that's kind of what's going on here. When we're going from bad to bad, that's giving you an overall better sense of where you want to be. And the other thing that it does that I really like is it helps you to be able to adjust. So, sometimes things creep into our swing, and I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you don't swing exactly the same that you did 10 years ago if you've been playing golf for a long time. Things creep into your swing and you don't even know it. So, for example, if you have a spine tilt of a certain way and you ingrain that, right? You sat there and you did the ingraining, and then just over the course of a few months, you didn't even know it, but you started getting really, really vertical, and you notice your ball flight started to change and you're struggling a little bit, but your adjustments changed over time. So what happens is now you notice that you looked on camera, was like, well, no wonder I'm really vertical now. No wonder I'm kind of coming over the top. That's been the problem. Well, now you know how to go from one extreme to the other. So now you can easily just get into that extreme position because you know how to do it instead of being locked into a sword. And there's lots and lots of studies on this. If you got a chance to go through Google or something like that, definitely there's lots of interesting stuff on it. I'd love to talk about it all day, but lots of good stuff on that I would check out. And I would also recommend there's a book, if you're looking for a good book to read, it's a book by Anders Ericsson. It's called Peak. I would check out that book. In fact, I might have it. I think I might have one. I thought I had one sitting over here. It's this book right here, Peak. Check out this book. It's basically, if you ever want to learn how to, it's not just applies to golf, it applies to anything. Learning an instrument, playing checkers, chess, whatever it is. If you're trying to learn a motor skill, and learn how the best people in the world, how they've typically done it, this is the book you'd want to read. So it has a lot of stuff that's about variability training and deliberate practice and things like that. So definitely check that out. All right. So John M says, "Hi, I was once a fairly good player playing off a 5 handicap at best, but developed the shanks and have developed and not have managed to get rid of them consistently." Sorry, I'm having trouble reading today. "I find my driving and woods are pretty good on irons. I am pathetic. I think I'm keeping on playing in the backswing, but having video of my swing, I'm still coming way inside. And I think when I lose concentration, I may be rotating my left arm through. Thoughts?" All right, so I'll tell you what I see almost always when people have a tendency to shank the ball. So let me go ahead and I'll angle this down a little bit so you guys can see me. So almost always what I see is that the reason why I have it lowered this way is I want you guys to be able to see my hips very well. What I almost always see is I see in the downswing this. So the hips are moving toward the ball. You kind of get this thrust forward. And when I do that, I don't have any space for my hands to move through. So what I do is my hands go out toward the ball, and that moves the hosel toward the golf ball, and you get the shanks. So what I would do is I would go look at your swing on camera. It's not about you necessarily being on plane or off plane, because when your hips thrust forward, that club usually drops back and it makes it go way under plane, or sometimes it makes it go on plane, because the reason why you might be doing that is because you may be coming down steep. So basically what happens is that you get that club working from the inside too much, and you get that hosel working at the golf ball, and you lose space for your hands to move through. So it moves the hosel toward the ball, and you end up shanking a bunch of them. So there's a couple things I would look at. Number one, I would look at and see if you are shallowing out the club in the downswing. Film your swing from down the line. Make sure you're shooting down your toe line. Very, very important that you're down your toe line, right through your hands. Your hands are right above your toe line. That's right where you want the camera to be situated. And in the downswing, when your lead arm is about parallel to the ground, so that's going to be about right here, draw a line extended from where that butt into the club is. Where is that butt into the club pointing? You want that to be at or a little outside of the golf ball. If you're inside the golf ball, so that's going to be about right there, what's going to happen is you're going to do that typically, because that's your effort to get the club to work down on plane. And your effort, you might be dropping the club way inside to make that happen because you're overcompensating. So we need to get this club shallowing out. So now you can turn and you'll be able to stay on plane much more easily. And your tush line, if you draw that line on your backside, you don't want your backside to come off that line at all. So you're going to be turning through, and your backside is going to stay on that line as you're coming through there. So that's what I would check out there. Lots of, like I was talking about the search engine earlier, search the word shank. You're going to find a ton of great videos on it. The one that I would recommend that I think is really good, it talks about what I just talked about there, but he talks about a drill where as you're coming down in the downswing, you want to feel like there's something pulling your hip back. So as you're coming down, you're kind of squatting down and your hip is pulling back. That's what you want to feel, because what you're actually probably doing is you're doing this. You want to feel your hip going back like that. So I definitely check out the shank videos there. That's probably really going to help you the most. All right, Andre says, "Hello, I noticed that when I go out and play with different guys, I noticed that with the driver, I can get pretty good distance, sometimes longer, than who I am playing with. But when it comes to the irons, I am always one club behind, even though my driver was longer. I am losing some distance with the irons. Can't figure out why." Well, I can tell you what's most likely is going on is that you probably have a similar or even more club head speed than the people that you play with. And that's why you're able to keep up with them or even hit a little bit longer than them with the driver. But with the irons, you probably have just as much club head speed as them, but you're not compressing the ball as much. So what that means is what's likely happening is you're coming in and you're adding loft to the face. So I would go, I would go and look at your swing on video from face on, slow motion if you can. A lot of the phones, especially the iPhones, have slow motion on them. See where you're releasing the club. So if we go to the straight line release section, if you've been in our section there, you know that we want to be releasing this club out in front about 45 degrees. So about like right up in there. A lot of amateurs are releasing the club right here at the golf ball, or maybe even a little bit after. And when you do that, you're not getting very much forward shaftling. You're adding loft to the face. So as you're coming in to impact, that shaft is maybe like this, vertical, or maybe just a little bit of forward shaftling. If you look at pros, their shaft is like this. It's leaned forward. They're taking about 30% of the loft off the face. So if you talk about a pitching wedge is about 46, 47 degrees, something like that. So if they're taking 30% of the loft off the face, that means that that pitching wedge has only 30 some degrees of loft on it at impact because they're de-lofting it. So that's how they're able to get more distance out of it, because they're compressing the ball. Because if you think about a sledgehammer, if you have a sledgehammer, there's zero loft on it, right? And that's maximum compression on a golf ball. Well, now if you take that sledgehammer, let's say this is the face of the sledgehammer right here, is my palm right there. If you're bringing that in, and now I open it up, so now the sledgehammer's aiming that way, but I'm coming in like that. Well, now I've added loft to that face, so I'm not going to be transferring as much energy to the ball because I've added loft to it. So that's what's happening, most likely happening with you, is that you're coming in, you're adding loft to it. So what you need to do is several things. There's lots of reasons why you might be adding loft to it. The first thing I would look at is, are you getting lag? Because if you're casting the club, if you're releasing the club from the top, you're going to release the club early almost all the time. If you're not shallowing, I just talked about a minute ago, if you're not shallowing out the club. So what that means is the shaft is going like this in the downswing. It's pointing, the butt end of the club is starting to point outside the golf ball. If you look at your downswing and you're kind of like this, that means that you're going to have to flip the club at impact, shallow it out late, so you don't chunk it every single time. So I would take a look at that. And then I would take a look at your release. And if those two look good, I would look at your straight line release. And it might just be that you're doing all those things well, but you're just trying to push that club through and flip it through as much as you can to either add loft or add speed or whatever it might be. And you just need to work on releasing the hands a little bit better. So I would definitely look at all those things. I can almost guarantee you that the reasoning is that you're adding loft to the face. So when you de-loft the face, you're basically taking the loft off there to make it less of a club. So if you think about it, there's about 4 degrees of loft between all clubs. So if someone's de-lofting the face 4 more degrees than you are, then they're going to be a club longer, something like that. The clubs are incrementally longer, so longer clubs you're going to swing faster. But if someone's taking 4 to 6 degrees off the face and you're adding that to the face, then they're going to be longer than you if your club head speeds are the same. And it doesn't matter what clubs you have. You can have player improvement clubs, you can have blades, it doesn't matter. You're adding loft to the face is going to make you lose distance. All right. So Stan says Clay's videos SH052 versus chipping 2.1 seem to disagree with each other regarding several chipping basics. Areas of disagreement between the two videos appear to be stance direction, open, as in SH052, stance width, ball position, eye position, chest position, help. So I'm not familiar with both of those videos necessarily. I know the chipping video 2.1. I believe that's from the Chipping Mastery, and that's what you're talking about. But the SH052, I'm not 100% sure what video that is. But I think you might be. My guess is you might be confusing chipping and pitching. I'm guessing one is a pitching video and one is a chipping video. So let me go over the differences between those real quick. So you're chipping, whenever you're chipping, that's going to be a swing that is intended to get the ball on the green and rolling as quickly as possible, rolling on the green as soon as possible. So that, that can be done with a wedge a lot of times, but it can also be done with a hybrid. It can be done anywhere. You're not going to hit a pitch shot with a hybrid. So a pitch shot is a shot that's meant to carry more and have spin on it. So it's usually a longer swing. So you can almost have a chipping motion. It's very similar to putting motion. It's the only real differences are it's maybe a little bit more dynamic, and obviously you're swinging a little bit harder. But as far as the rocking back and through motion, it's very much the same. I like to set up chipping, and everyone has their own ways that work a little bit better for them. But with chipping, I like to set up with my feet just a little open, and the only reason I like to do that is because it allows me to see the line a little bit better. And then it's just brushing the turf. And I like to have my weight, most of my weight a little bit forward, and then it's just getting that brushing the turf. So I think that's a lot of what 2.1 talks about. And like I said, I'm not familiar with SH02, but 052. But with that, for pitching, what I like to do, I like to set up a little bit more open. So the reasoning why is because it helps me to open up my body a little bit more and keep everything moving through together. So if I set up like this, so this is more of an open stance. The ball's kind of in the middle of my stance here, and that's where it would be. I have a ball in my pocket. There we go. So I can kind of show you. There you can see that. So the ball would kind of be, the camera angle might make it look a little bit different, but essentially that's how I would set up for a pitch. And as I'm coming through, I just want to keep everything moving through together. And again, I want to have my weight forward because there's no weight shift that's necessary. We're not going for power here. We're just going for accuracy. So setting up with that ball, and it can be a little bit forward, a little bit back. It's more of a comfort level with you. It's just where you're comfortable with that club bottoming out. But I find pretty much right in between here is the best for me, where I found it. And I just want to keep everything moving through together. So that'd be a pitch shot. Now, if I go really long, like I'm talking like this would be like a 30, 40 yard pitch shot. A little bit longer, I might get a little bit wider for stability. I still play the ball about in the same place, and I would still open up a little bit to get everything moving through. So it really depends on your club head speed. If you're someone who doesn't have a ton of club head speed, that might be a little bit different for you. If you're, I swing my driver about 115 typically. That's about what my playing speed is. So, that's a little bit higher. That's higher than the average golfer. So, for you, that might be, if you're around 100 miles per hour with your driver typically, that might be a little bit shorter of a distance that you can take that kind of shot. But I would definitely double check those videos and make sure that I imagine you're seeing a pitching video versus a chipping video. All right. So David P says the concept of swinging in a barrel has been around for a long time. What's the best way to avoid lateral hip movement? So that's a good question. So one of the best ways is to basically, first of all, make sure that you're not sliding in the backswing. So if you're going like this in the backswing, you're going to tend to do this in the downswing. So that'd be first, swinging in a barrel. It applies to the backswing as well. So you want to make sure that you're turning back, and that's going to allow you to get a proper weight shift. And then as soon as you start feeling that pressure in your lead side, that's when you're going to start pushing back. What I see a lot of times is the guys that get their legs really straight and then they just kind of slide. Or you see people who try to get to their left side, but because they're steep in the swing, they're like this, they can't turn their hips. They're standing up out of their swing, and then their legs get straight, and then they end up sliding to their lead side. So first thing I would do, I would check and make sure that you're staying stable and everything with your spine in the backswing, and you're not getting any of this action, and you're not bringing the club back, and you're doing this and getting your spine angle leaning toward the target. because that's going to cause you to go that way in the downswing usually. And then the other thing I would do is I'd make sure that you're shallowing out the club and that you're not standing up in the backswing. Because if you're able to stay in your posture and get a proper weight shift, then you can get that body to open up and turn through impact instead of bumping and throwing the club at it. So I would definitely look at those two pieces. There's a great video on the website how to start the downswing. You can do the step drill. That's really, really good. You start out with your feet together and then step forward in the backswing, and that's going to help you to start that downswing a little bit better and be able to help you feel the ground to turn the body open. All right. Warren P says, after reps of practicing details on purpose, is there a video regarding the feel relating to experiencing club weight during the swing? Club head weight during the swing. Let me read that again. Sorry. After reps of practicing details on purpose, is there a video regarding the feel relating to experiencing club head weight during the swing? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there. Feeling the club head weight. If you would, Warren, if you wouldn't mind kind of explaining your question, I'll be happy to answer. I just I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking there. All right, why do I stand up during the downswing, Ronald? All right, so you're probably sensing a little bit of a theme and why shallowing out the club is very, very important. The biggest reason why I see people stand up, I'm not saying that this is necessarily the reason why you are, but this, since I can't see your swing, and again, I just want to tell you guys just real quick here, I have spots available for swing reviews. So if you want me to look at your swing and give you the exact reason why you're standing up or why you're doing something, then I can pinpoint that for you in a swing review. In this, all I can really do is tell you what I see most of the time and tell you, okay, go look for this in your swing. And then if it's not that, maybe the next time that you come ask a question, you could say, why am I standing up in my swing? I'm shallowing out the club. So why else would it be? So I would just, go about that. But if you want pinpoint, I can go through a lesson with you in our swing reviews and we can get that knocked out right away. So Ronald, again, asked why you stand up in the downswing. So here's the biggest reason why I see people stand up in the downswing. And if we're watching from down the line, this club is coming down steep. So this is in the downswing. We're coming down when that lead arm is parallel to the ground. That shaft is pointing inside the golf ball. So what we have to do from this point, if we continue down in this motion, I'm just going to throw the club right into the ground. Or I'm going to swing way over the top. So it's one of those two things. Or what because most of us are pretty athletic, and we're going to try and get that club to come back down on plane. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand up, and that's going to drop the club back, and it's going to get it to come back down on plane. And then that's when we're standing up and coming out of our posture. So I would take a look and make sure that you're shallowing out the club in the downswing in transition, and that's going to be going through the move section. If you're coming down steep, you're going to want to go to the tennis racket drill in the move section. Go through that move section, get the reps in, make it second nature, and that's really going to help you to stay in your posture a lot better in the downswing. All right, so hi Q, Fernando. Hey man. So Fernando's in my Unlimited Swing Review program. He just joined me. He said I sent him a review on videos he sent you last week. In your email back, you stated that log into your locker, etc. So Fernando, if you would, shoot me over an email, since this is kind of a thing between me and you. This is more like a support issue as opposed to an instruction question. So just shoot me over an email, and then after I get done with the office hours, I'll take a look at that. So if you would do that, that'd be great. Rufus says, I have problems with sand shots. I open my club face a lot. Just good. That's what you should do. Give it a full swing, hitting behind the ball. Too much of the time, I feel metal ball contact. I have no idea what is happening. When this does not happen, I hit good greenside bunker shots, feast or famine. So when you're feeling when you hit a really good bunker shot, it's just going to feel like a thump on the sand. You're usually not going to feel the ball on the face too much. So I would say on the ones where you when you're getting that metal, when you're feeling that metal on the ball, those are ones where you're probably not taking enough sand. You're probably you're probably hitting the ball too much and not enough of the sand. So I would definitely, get out the camera. If you have a slow motion camera, you can kind of see. Hopefully, you have something like an iPhone or something like that, and you can see what's going on there. The other thing you can do is you can draw lines in the sand. So you could draw 3 lines in the sand, and you could put them about 3 or 4 inches apart, and put the ball on the middle line, and you'll want to hit the sand on the line before the sand, and then you want the club to exit on the line on the other side of the ball. So you'll be able to see, if you hit one, you clank one, and you look down the sand, and you can see, oh, well, my club entered the sand after the line. So I just got too much ball on that one. So I'd definitely be looking at that. The other thing is I see with people, the most common mistake I see in bunkers is that people are just afraid to swing hard at it. So they decelerate and the club gets stuck in the sand and they don't hit it well. So you just want to make sure that you're accelerating all the way through. And when if you practice it enough, you're going to get more and more comfortable with it. I know, before I came to Florida, I didn't play courses with hardly any sand in it. I very, very little sand. And then the sand that at the courses that I did play, the sand was awful. It was very packed and wet sand. So it was almost like you couldn't hit it like a normal bunker shot. You had to hit it. You had to get some metal on the ball because you couldn't take like a thump it out of there like you could at a nice sand. When I moved to Florida, there's a lot more bunkers here, especially at the courses that we play here. And I had to learn to hit bunker shots again. So I spent basically an entire afternoon refining my bunker game. And I found out that, I think before I was just afraid to swing hard at it because when I'd done that in the past, it was on, terrible bunkers. They're hardly packed. You have to play a different kind of shot out of those. But I tell you what, once I got used to it, it just becomes like more of a feel thing. And exactly how hard you need to swing to get the ball there. And you become more comfortable with it. And I think that's what I would recommend doing is just go out there. Hopefully your practice facility has somewhere where you can work on this. And you can go out there for an afternoon and just, get used to it, up that game a little bit. It takes a lot of practice, but once you get it, bunker actually becomes very, very easy. Paul H says, so if you put the ball too far in front of your left foot and your club head speed is closing, would gear effect cause the ball to start and then start left and then fade to the right? So all gear effect is where you strike the ball on the club face. So I guess technically if your club head's moving more left as it's coming into impact, you may be more apt to strike the ball on the toe. But typically, it's such a small amount that it's only making a very, very small difference. But like I said, gearing is just where you strike the ball in the face. So if you strike the ball, what causes the ball to curve, if you have it further up in your stance, that's going to be more of a path thing. So if we're looking at bird's eye view, where's my marker that I had? So I'm going to try and draw this on my board here. So if we're looking at a bird's eye view of the golf ball, and here's your club path coming in. It's coming in, and then it starts to move to the left as it gets to your golf ball. And then let's say that your face was square. So let's say that line is your club face, and then there's your club path. Well, this ball, which we'll use pink here to be the ball flight. So this ball is going to start straight, and then it's going to curve away from the path. It's going to curve to the right, and that's what's causing the ball to turn and curve to the right is the face to path ratio. Now, that's assuming that we hit it in the center of the face. let's say that we hit it out on the toe. Well, if you hit it out on the toe, it could kind of cancel that out. You could, I mean, it just depends on how big of a difference you have between your face and your path and how much you hit it out on the toe. But if you hit it out on the toe, it's going to tend to want to draw more. So if you take a slice swing and you hit it out on the toe, that could be considered like a really good miss. It may not go as far as what you intended it to go because it wasn't a solid strike, but it's most likely going to be safe. You know, it's most likely going to end up fairly straight. Whereas, let's say we took a slice swing and we hit it off the heel. Well, that's just going to exaggerate that even more. It's just gonna slice even more than what it did before. So that's basically what's going on there as far as gear effect. It's where you strike the ball in the face, and not so much. It doesn't have anything to really do with your face to path, the direction the club face is pointing, and the way that the club head is moving through impact. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, ball striking masterclass. If you guys want to learn about ball flight laws and stuff like that, that is the place to go for sure. You're going to get a really good education if you go on there about this kind of stuff. All right, so let me take a drink here. Donald A says, after practicing the stable fluid spine, I have been sculling the ball more in hooking. My ball mark is usually behind the ball. How can I get the extension on the downswing and have the divot in front at impact? So that's a great question. So what happens is that if you get more angled away as you're coming into impact, angle this down a little bit. If you get more angled away as you're coming into impact, that's actually going to help you to swing more from the inside, and that's going to help you to swing more into out. So that's probably where the hooks are coming from. You just haven't, figured out how to hit the ball with that spine angle yet, but you have to have that spine angled away. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to release the club out in front. But you may be overdoing it as well. So make sure that you're looking at it on camera and you're not way, way back here and swinging into out. You want to be roughly, if you draw a line from my center of my chest down to the center of my hips, you want that to be 20 to 25 degrees angled away. So it's going to be looking like something like that, essentially. But if you're like this, that's going to be way too much. See, I'm way too much. So that could be what's going on there. So make sure that you're in the right zone of where you want to be in order to get that club to work into out. The other thing that it does, you mentioned that your topping shots, is it moves the low point of the club. So if you're swinging over the top, if I'm going extreme here, the low point, and by low point, I mean when this club is coming into the ground, it reaches its lowest point and then it goes up because the club's coming down on an arc, right? So if you're looking at it from this perspective, the club's coming down and then it's going up. Well, it's reaching its low point right there and then it's going back up. So when you swing more into out, that low point moves back a little bit. And then if you swing over the top, that low point moves forward a little bit compared to where it was before. So it's just a matter of adjusting, but you just want to make sure that you're getting to your lead side. So what's likely happening, and like I said, this all comes down to I'm trying to guess what's happening with you. I don't know 100% without seeing your swing. But what I see a lot of times is you see people that get angled away, but they're hanging back. So they're kind of on their back foot as they're coming into impact, and they're not getting to their lead side, because when they had their spine tilt straight up and down, that worked for them, just to kind of hang back. But when you're angled away and you have your upper body in the right position, well, you got to get your lower body working, in the right way to get that club to work where you want it to go. So I would go to our stop chunking and topping section. That's going to help you to get to your lead side a lot better. There's some great weight shift drills in there that I'd recommend you check out. But yeah, first of all, make sure that you're spining, like you're not overdoing it. And then the other one would be to go to that chunking and topping section and work through there, and to get to where, in conjunction with the spine tilt, getting that ball contact where you want it to be. All right. So Jerry C says striking the ball off the toe of the club, fairly often resulting in a shot which pulls to the left. So that's, that could have to do with gearing. Hitting the ball on the toe will make the ball tend to want to go to the left. I don't feel like I'm swinging over the top, but I do have some feeling like I'm swinging across my body. Which lesson should I work on to correct that? So when you say that you feel like something, that tells me that you aren't filming your swing. You got to make sure that you're filming your swing. Feel is not. I'll tell you this. Feel is not real most of the time, and I would strongly encourage you to film your swing because the camera usually doesn't lie. It's going to tell you exactly what's going on. So what I'd recommend doing first, the ball, science doesn't lie either. The physics aren't going to lie. If you are pulling the ball to the left, that is a product of the face being closed and your club path moving to the left, which means you're coming over the top. So it may not feel like it, but in reality, you probably are. So I would take a look at your swing on camera and draw that elbow plane. So the elbow plane is, just to reiterate what that is, the elbow plane is going to go when you're set up to the ball and you got the camera set up right down your toe line here, which is pretty close to what we're at here. That elbow plane line is going to go from the hosel of the club up through the point of my right elbow here, or my trail elbow. And if you have that camera angle correctly, you're going to be able to tell if this club is working down on plane or not, or if it's working too much under plane or over the top. So make sure that you're far away enough. Like this isn't the right camera angle because we're too close, one thing, and the camera's too high. So you need to make sure that you're far away enough and that you have it about waist level, shooting right down your toe line, and then draw that line on there. And you'll be able to easily see if you have that club coming down over the top or not. So to fix an over the top, first thing you're going to want to look at is spine angle. Make sure that you're angled away, because if you're vertical at the top of the swing, your shoulder is going to tend to want to go out like that. And that's going to be an over the top kind of move. Whereas if you're nice and angled away like that, now that shoulder is going to want to go down and that club's going to want to work from the inside for you. So I first look at that. If that looks good, then you need to go to our stop slicing, never slice again section and work through the drills in there, because all of those drills basically in that series are going to be to help you to get this club to work from the inside a lot better. All right. Mark S says, okay, thanks. That answered my question. Awesome. Okay. Jim F says, let me take a drink here real quick. He says it hits drives 240, 250. Awesome. 3-wood 230. That's good. 5-wood 215. Treble wood 205. Iron. Okay, so he's just giving me all his numbers here. From 5,800 yards, I break par. That's great. From 6,300, 10.5 handicap. What would you work on? Distance, club head speed. That'd be it there. I mean, if you want to play better on longer courses, you got to increase your club head speed to increase your distance. So right now, we're working on our distance masterclass. We got some people going through that and are showing great results. That's a program that is tailored just for increasing your distance and increasing your club head speed. So hopefully we'll have that available in the future for y'all. And then as far as right now, what you should do is go to the power turn section. Make sure you're getting a big shoulder turn. That's really the number one thing that we see is shoulder turn. So making sure that you're getting at least a 90 degree, as much as you can, really. And make sure you're getting a good power turn. And the power turn just isn't the backswing. It's not just this. It's also coming all the way through into a full finish as well. So make sure you're doing both of those. You'll want to look at your lag and make sure that your lag, that you're not casting the club. If you're releasing the club from the top, you're burning out all your distance. So you want to be generating lag and then releasing that lag out in front. So those two pieces are very, very big for distance. And then if you're looking for more of a course of things to go through a video series, road to 125, that's the section you want to do. That's actually in the vault. So if you go to the instruction tab, go to the vault, and scroll down. I think it's toward the bottom of the page. You'll see the Road to 125. That's just a series where Clay took his club head speed from, I can't remember what it was, like 110, maybe 115, and he got it up to 125 miles an hour. I talked about all the things that he went through to do that. So I definitely go through those, but it's going to be about increasing that club head speed. That's going to be the easiest thing for you to play better on longer courses. All right, so Wayne V says, just a thought, I have found the thing that helps me the most making solid contact is at the top of the swing. I keep club still and release left shoulder and left hip moves first, then let the club drop into position and release that impact. Your thoughts? Well, Wayne, it sounds like you found something that works great for you. Sounds like, that's all things happening in a good sequence there. Most likely what's happening is to get to where you're going from the ground up, even though that may not be what it feels like. I will say this, we all have our different feels and things that work better for certain people and not for others. So if there was one thing that helped you to generate lag, then there would only be one lag drill, and the top speed lag section would just be one video, and you would be set to go. But it doesn't work that way. There's all kinds of people feel different things. It's like I was talking about earlier. Feel isn't always real. You may feel like you're doing something, but the reality is that you're not. So I get this question a lot where people ask me, do I consciously, actively do this or whatever in the swing? And the reality is you just have to look at what's going on camera, and then whatever you're feeling needs to match up with what you're seeing on camera. So if you're not seeing that, then you need to exaggerate the opposite feeling to help you get to the right place. And I would just exaggerate it as much as you possibly can, because the worst thing you can do is just overdo it. So for instance, if your spine angle, you feel like, you look on camera and your spine angle is straight up and down. Well, you feel like you're like this. You feel like you're in the perfect place. But on camera, you're straight up and down at impact. You're just like this. Well, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to feel, you may as well feel like you're like this as you're coming into impact. Even though that's wrong, technically that would be wrong if you actually did it. But it's about adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So feel like this. And then if you look on camera and you're actually like this, well, at that point, all you have to do is just ease off of that a little bit. And it's going to be a lot easier rather than to try to just do it a little bit. Try to do it the same every single time and expect to get there. That's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So you got to change the feeling that you're having to get a different result. To me, it sounds like you're on the right track. Whatever feelings you have that is putting you in the right impact positions, that's the correct feeling to have. It's not up to me to say, oh, your feelings are completely wrong. It's the camera doesn't lie. You're going to look at the camera and it's going to look, oh yeah, that's putting you where I want. Well, if you felt like, you had a needle going into your back when you were getting in the right position, I said, well, I would stick with that because that's working. Right. So, that's kind of out of nowhere, but that's basically what it comes down to. All right. Alan B here. Let me get a drink real quick. All right. So Alan B says, I'm trying to ensure that rotate my hips on the downswing, but I've noticed that I've started to hit down on the top of the golf ball. Do you think this could be because I'm moving the hips forward as I try to rotate them? So it could be that when you are trying to rotate your hips, you're also bringing everything else with it. So what's happening, what I'm guessing is happening here is that you're trying to rotate your hips, and in doing that, you're going like this. So you're bringing everything else with it. When in reality, you want to rotate those hips, and you want to feel like your arms are kind of going behind your body, because that's going to help you to drop that into the slot there. So what I would try to feel like is as you're going backwards, that your arms and the club and everything are going more behind your body, and that's going to help you to get that club to work down on plane and not swing over the top. So one thing that can kind of help you with that at home is if you just kind of do some of these. If you just find a wall and you stand next to that wall You put your hands on that wall and just kind of do some of these where you turn your hips and you're keeping your upper body stabilized, right? By putting your hands on the wall and you do some of these. Well, that's going to get you that feeling of your hips going out in front, and that's going to allow you to get that club to work from the inside a little bit better. So I definitely give that a try and then try to replicate that feeling in a practice swing. All right. Excuse me. Let's see here. Menno here. He says, or she says, I'm not sure. He said, I recently bought a launch monitor which shows my spin rate with a driver is too high, 3,200 average. Had to fix that. So I don't know what your club head speed is, but 3,200. If you have a lower club head speed, that's actually a pretty good place to be. If you have a higher club head speed, let's say you're over 100 miles per hour, 3,200 would be too high as far as distance is concerned. It's going to be a little bit harder to get distance. You're going to be leaving a little bit in the tank, but the best way to do that is to get to where you're hitting more up on the ball. So there's something that's called spin loft. Let me find a golf ball. So I use this putter just because it's easier to see the face. But basically, if you have this club, it's working up. It's working up into the ball. Well, that's going to allow you to get that high launch. And it's also going to reduce the amount of spin that's on it. Because if you hit down on the ball, well, that's going to add spin, right? That's going to add spin to the ball. If you hit up on it, that's going to reduce the amount of spin on the ball. So that's what you want to do. And you also want to de-loft the face. So hitting up and de-lofting the face. It's almost like you're putting top spin on the ball, right? Like if I was to actually do that, like that would put top spin on the ball. But I'm just doing this to exaggerate it so you can see what's going on. But if you have this coming in, that's the feeling that you want to have. So the way to do that is I would look at your swing on camera and I would make sure that your compression line, which if you recall from the Top Speed Golf system, your compression line is going to be the line from your lead ankle here to your hip to your lead shoulder at impact. So if you look at impact and everything's kind of at impact, you're kind of like this. Everything's kind of leaning forward. See, I'm kind of leaning toward the target a little bit here. Well, that's going to be more of a downward angle of attack. Whereas if I want to hit up on the ball, I want to have this more angled away so that I can get up, hit up on the ball as I'm coming through there. You'll see some pros that have their compression line is going to be 10, 15 degrees angled away from the target at impact because they're trying to get up on the ball as much as you can. So what I'd recommend doing is I would go, first of all, I'd go to the compression line section and do all the drills there with the driver. And with the driver, I'd be trying to get more angled away. I know we talk about being a couple degrees angled away. That's more for shots off the turf. That's a great place to be. Well, if you're wanting to hit up on the driver, get a little bit more angled away. Get 5, 10 degrees angled away, and that's going to help you to get that club head moving up. And there's also great videos on the website that are driver specific as far as that goes. If you search high launch on the website, pretty much all of those videos are going to be associated with the driver and hitting up on the ball and lowering that spin. All right. So Gregory S says, hi, Q. If someone has access to a launch monitor and is seeing launch angles 30% lower than the static loft of the iron, can you assume that you have decent FSL and ball compression? Not sure. Oh, forward shaft length is what I mean by FSL. That could be a fairly safe assumption. The other thing to think about is is ball contact. So if you're hitting the ball thin, that's going to lower the launch angles. And the other thing is that your the 30% lower number, that's the dynamic loft that you're seeing that's lower. So your launch angle is going to be somewhere between your dynamic loft and your angle of attack. It's going to be more toward, it's going to be 80% toward your, so actually I'll draw this out for you to make this a little bit simpler. All right. So let me find my marker here. What did I do with it? Oh, I think this is the one I was using. All right, so if we have, here's the horizon, okay? And here's your golf ball. So if you have your angle of attack, so this is the up and down movement of the club head coming into impact. So balls coming that you're hitting off the turf, you want to have a down angle of attack. So let's say your angle of attack, let's say that that's down 5 degrees. So let's say that that's 5 degrees, 5 degrees, angle of attack. All right, so now let's say that our club face is coming in. All right, here's our club face. Pardon my terrible drawing, but let's say that this is our club face is coming in. And let's say the loft on this is the loft, the dynamic loft. That's the loft that you're presenting to the golf ball at impact. That's going to be, let's say, to make the math easy, let's say that that's 20 degrees. So 20 degrees, that's going to be roughly, a tour, that's going to be roughly like between a 5 and a 6 iron is what your dynamic loft is going to be for your average tour player. So to find your the launch angle of this, that's going to be somewhere in between that. And it's going to be 80% toward your dynamic loft. So let's say dynamic loft. And that would mean that your dynamic loft or your launch angle, so that's where the angle of this ball is going to launch, is going to be roughly, there's 25 degrees between your dynamic loft and your angle of attack. So that means that your launch angle is going to be 20 degrees toward that. So basically -5 degrees plus 20 degrees is going to be 15 degrees. So that's your launch. So if your question was, is 30% lower than your static loft at impact. So let's say in this situation, this is like a 5 iron. So your 5 iron is like, I can't remember exactly what a 5 iron is, but it's most likely you're not de-lofting it enough, because if you think about, I think your 5 iron is going to be roughly about 28 degrees probably. So that would mean if you're launching it at 30% less than 28 degrees, that's only going to be about 20 degrees, right? So that's what a tour player would be launching a 5 iron at. Would be, somewhere, 5 or 6 iron is going to be something like that. So I would say in your case, depending on the lofts of your clubs and all that sort of thing, if it's only 30% less than you're launching the ball, then I would say, no, that's not enough. But if it's 30% than your dynamic loft, which is the loft that you're presenting to the ball at impact, then that's a tour level, because that's typically what your pros are doing. So hopefully that didn't confuse everybody. Stan says, no, both videos are chipping only. So I'm going to write a note on that. I believe you mentioned it was SH052. I'm going to go ahead, I'll write a note on here, and I will check that out. If you get on here again, I'll remember you, or at least I hope I do. And then I believe it's 2.1 chipping. I will look at those when we get done here. I will look at those videos, and I'll if you get on here tomorrow, we'll be on here at 9 a.m. or another time. If you just tell me, hey, I was the guy who asked about the chipping videos, I'll look into that and see if I can get an answer for you. All right, so David S. Says, or if you actually, Stan, you know what? Your name is Stan L. If you would, if you don't mind, just put your last name on here, and I can look you up in the system, and I can just send you an email about it. That would probably be the easiest thing, actually. If you don't mind putting your last name on here. If you do mind, then we'll just do it the original way that I just talked about. So David S. says, when I drive the ball, my ball sometimes backs up when in the fairway. My spin rate on a simulator was 4,500 RPM. What can I do to stop my drives from spinning back? So hopefully, David, you were around when I just explained that same question pretty much a minute ago. It's just about try to get that compression line to where you're more angled away so that you can reduce that spin loft. Because if you're at 4,500 RPM, that means that you're probably hitting down on your driver or you're hitting the ball low on the face. So try to see where you're striking on the face. Use some foot powder spray. Spray it on the club face and see where you're striking your driver on the face. If most of them, when you're getting them lower on the face, that's probably the primary reason why you're seeing so much spin. So get that strike a little bit higher on the face. Even a little bit above a center is going to be good because that's going to help you reduce spin. It's also going to help you to launch it a little bit better. And pretty much any video on launching the ball high with the driver or launching the driver is going to help you with your issue there. All right. So Warren again says, when we practice details, we think about individual details during the swing. When we then want to actually play, we don't want to think of an individual detail. So not sure if that was a question or if he was just stating something. But yeah, I think when you're out playing, I always tell people, you want one swing thought, two at most. And if you have two, and it can't be two downswing swing thoughts. It can only be a backswing swing thought and a downswing swing thought. Really, ideally, you'd just have one that would be really, really good. And you want it to be positive. It can't be negative. It can't be don't hit it over there. Don't chunk it. It has to be, full backswing. For me, I like to think, because I tend to be a little bit quick sometimes. That's one of my things. Is I tend to think, take your time, full backswing, and then full follow through. That's what really helps me to play really good golf. Rod P says, at what point are we releasing correctly and not flipping? So the release is going to be right out in front. So when we talk about the release, what that means is, let me angle this down a little bit. When we talk about the release, when that club is released, that means that the club is splitting the forearms. All the angles are gone. I don't have any angles in my wrist. My wrists are neutral. This club is not creating any angles. Like that would be an angle. That would be an angle. It's just, there's no angles there. So that means that everything's released to that point. And that's where we want it to happen, right out in front, about 45 degrees, about 4 or 5 feet out in front of the golf ball. That's where you want that club to be releasing. So if that's happening here, right? So now you can kind of see that I have no angles in this club. It's just everything. It's splitting my forearms, pointing straight into my sternum at right here, this point in the swing. Well, that's only 10 degrees out in front, a foot out in front of the ball. That's going to be a flip, because if we rewind this to where impact is, that's going to be maybe that's probably my impact right there. My shaft's pretty much straight up and down. So if we get to where you're releasing it out in front and we rewind that to impact, well, now that's what impact looks like. And you can kind of see I have some forward shaft lean here at impact. So that's basically the difference between, if you're not, I'd say if you're releasing the club pretty much at the golf ball or right after the golf ball, I would consider that flipping. You're kind of scooping the ball. If you're releasing it, we say we want you to be 45 degrees. That's ideal. That's like pro level. But if you're releasing it 25 degrees out in front, I wouldn't necessarily say that you're flipping, but I would say that it could be improved. You can improve your forward shaft lane by releasing that club more out in front. You're probably in that kind of medium area where you're probably able to hit some really solid shots doing that. I mean, there's professionals. Justin Rose is not someone who releases that club 45 degrees out in front. He releases it like 30 degrees out in front. And obviously, he's been number one player in the world. He's a major winner, pretty darn good golfer. So it doesn't mean you can't play good golf. It just means, he could probably get a little bit more compression on the ball if he released the club a little bit later and got a little bit more forward chaffling as a result of that. All right. So Warren here again says, when we Pele and want to not think of details, we want to focus on the target and not think about impact or something. Again, I'm not sure if Warren is just sharing things or if he's asking questions. But if he's just sharing things, that's good. You just want to think. Mainly, you just want to think about one thing. So I agree. I think with what he's saying. All right. So Lauren here, he says, and if this is the Lauren that come to the distance clinic, awesome to hear from you. Lauren came to a distance clinic a while back. Said I had a tough time Tuesday on the par. For some reason, it's censored, but par 5 shot. 2 great shots were 50 or so yards. Screwed up all of them. 1 double, 2 bogeys. I usually do well. What is the best way to consistent control over 50 and 60 yard shots? Well, I will say one thing is that we don't always have our best stuff every single day. Nobody is 100% consistent every single day. If you look at the best players in the world, if you look at number 1 player in the world right now, Dustin Johnson, he doesn't win every single tournament. He wins several of them, but he doesn't win every single time. And that's because nobody is consistent. Nobody's going to go out there and make all the putts, we're all going to have better days than others. If any of you have been in the ball striking masterclass, you've heard of kind of the 20 stroke rule. And basically what that means is, if you are, there's going to be about a 20 stroke difference between your best round of the year and your worst round of the year. You look at any professional, look at Dustin Johnson. I think it was, I didn't look at it last year, but the year before that I know he had an 83 and a 63. So there's a 20 stroke difference right there. The best player in the world shot in 83. So we can't really expect to be able to go out and shoot par every time or whatever our handicap is, because it's just not the reality. It's not going to happen. So you're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. So what you can do is you can just kind of chalk it up to, you mentioned that you usually do really well on those, but just that day you just didn't. Well, that's just one of those days where you just, something wasn't working right or whatever. And you didn't play your best, and that's completely normal. But if it becomes a trend where, 50, 60 yard shots are becoming really, really difficult. If you're looking for control with those, what I recommend is something that's called the clock system. It's David Pelz, has talked about this a lot in his books. And basically what it is you kind of think about your arms or your hands as hands on a clock. And what I like to do, what I actually went out and did is I went out with my wedges and I figured out what distances I hit with a 9 o'clock swing, 7:30 swing, maybe an 8 o'clock swing. So what that would be, a 9 o'clock swing would be where my arms are parallel to the ground. So this would be a 9 o'clock swing. It's about a 3/4 swing. So with a wedge, I think about what, how far do I hit my 58 degree with a 9 o'clock swing? And then once I know that number and I go out to the course, I can go out there and know, okay, so let's say that number is 60 yards with a 9 o'clock swing of the 58 degree. Let's say that number is 60 yards. Well, when I go out to the course, and let's say I have a 55 yard shot, well, I know that my 9 o'clock shot goes 60 yards. So I can just take a little bit off of that, maybe not quite swing to 9 o'clock, or I can choke up a little bit on the club. And what that will also do is it'll give me a little bit more control of the club, and I'll be able to, take a little bit off of it and get that 50 yard shot. So there's also the 7:30 swing. So between adjusting the swing length to a 9 o'clock, 7:30, a 10:30 swing, and 8 o'clock swing, being able to have a good feel of those and choking up and down on the club to make little adjustments, I found that is the easiest way to really hone in and dial in your wedges. And it just takes practice and knowing. So what I'd recommend doing is just go out, If you have a driving range, they'll allow you just go out there, or hopefully your driving range has actual, every 10 yards has something, some marker there, so you can tell how far things go. Or if you have access to a field or something, or a park where you can just throw a mat down and hit some wedge shots. But essentially, just go out there and lay some towels down every 10 yards. And I would take, each club, each wedge that you have, and do one where you're not choked up, you're all the way down like a normal, like you would be taking a full swing with it, and take a 730 swing. Take about 10 of them and see how far it goes. See what your average was. And if there's any where you just absolutely chunked or bladed that weren't solid shots, throw those out. Those aren't going to count. And then choke up on it an inch and see how far all those shots go. And what you can do is, you don't have to remember all that, but what you can do is you can take like a Post-it note or something and write it on there and then tape it onto your shaft. So now you can go out to the course and you can have a 52-yard shot, and you can pull out your wedge and be like, okay, well, choke down 1 inch with a 9 o'clock swing, that goes 50 yards. So if I just go a little bit longer, or maybe if I just choke down a half an inch, that will give me the distance that I want. And that's how you can really dial those in. So hopefully that helped you, and you'll be able to take that out and implement that. So James P says, when they say shallow the downswing, should my thought be place my right elbow into my right hip? I think a better feeling would be into your ribs, because if you think down into your hip, if I angle this down, that might kind of work against you. So if you're thinking, I'm assuming you're right-handed, so if you're thinking down here, that may actually cause you to kind of pull the club down. So I would try to feel like just the right, like it's almost going toward your belt buckle. I would try to feel like that right elbow is helping, because that's what's going to help you to shallow that club out, is bringing that right elbow in. And I would just exaggerate it as much as you can, get it really, really shallowing out. And then once you get it to where you can do that easily, then all you have to do is ease off of it. And then now that just seems really easy, and you can get that club working down the slot a lot easier. So overdo it, ease off of it. It's going to be the easiest way. But I like it into the rib a little bit better, I think, or inward toward the belt buckle. That's going to help you to shallow it out even better. All right, so Louis K says, I'm having problems with the irons going a little left from where I was aiming. They are straight. I think I may be getting my hips out way too soon. Thanks. So it sounds like you just have a little bit of a pull going. So as I mentioned before, as we talked earlier, the ball is always going to start mostly in the direction of the club face and curve away from the path. So if the ball is going straight, that means that there's really no difference between your face and path. They're pretty much in the same direction. So what that means is that your path is going left and your face is going left if you're getting a little bit of that pull. So I would try to feel like you're swinging more from the inside. And if that actually gets you to hit the ball to the right, then at that point, I would feel like you're swinging from the inside and that you're closing that face down, like you're rolling that face over a little bit more to get that to straighten out. So I wouldn't necessarily think about it so much as the hips are doing this or the hips are doing this. I would think of it in terms of what's happening at impact and what can I do to this club head. That's going to be so much easier to think about it as an external focus, meaning I'm going to control this club head to try and get things to happen, rather than trying to think, I'm trying to get my hips through a little bit more or my hips through a little bit less. Your results are going to be a lot better if you think about impact. So what I would think about is what's happening at impact when I'm hitting the ball left. That means my face is closed and my path is to the left. If it's not curving anywhere, it's just going straight left. That means my face and path are in the same direction. So I would try to feel like you're swinging more out to the right. And if you hit it straight out to the right, at that point, I would try to feel like you're getting the face to close down a little bit more. And that's going to come from rolling the hands over a little bit more to get that face to shut down. Bowing that left wrist. So as you're coming into impact, feeling like you're doing this. See how that face is closing? So I feel like as you're coming into impact, you're doing more of that to close the face instead of leaving it open. Well, that's when you get the club working into out, once you get that going. All right, so Minesh P says, problem with chips and short pitch shots. Sometimes I hit them with front edge of wedge. Not a shank, but similar result. Ball shoots off to the right at 45-degree angle. So it sounds like a shank, but maybe it's a toe shank. So if it's going off to the right at a 45-degree angle, it's either coming off the hosel or it's coming off the toe of the club. If it's just coming off the bottom of the club, it's not going to go 45 degrees to the right. It's just going to go straight forward, unless you're leaving the face way open, which in that case, if you're leaving the face 45 degrees open, and then it might do that. But so I would just take a look at that. What's probably happening is it's a toe shank is what it sounds like, not off the hosel. So I would try to feel like you're trying to hit it off the hosel, because that's going to move it's kind of like what I was talking with Louis a minute ago, is thinking more about impact and not so much what your body is doing, but just trying to change what's happening at impact. So I would try to feel like if you're hitting it toe shank, then I would try to feel like you're hitting it on the heel, like you're actually hitting a hosel shank, and that will most likely move that strike closer here. You still want to line it up wherever you normally do. So if you line it up on the center of the face, what you're doing right now is you're coming in like that, and it's shooting off to the right. So what you want to do is line up as you normally would, and then actually feel like you're coming in and you're doing this. But the reality will be that you come in and you do that, hopefully. And then if you actually hit a shank off the hosel, then all you have to do is ease off of that. Maybe you don't think of it hitting off the hosel. Maybe you just think of it as right there. And then you're just adjusting your feeling to get the desired result that you want. So I would definitely take a look at that. I'd also take a look at what's also maybe happening is that you're probably flipping through impact. So I just try to keep your hands really, really solid as you're coming through impact. Don't try to help the ball in the air. Trust the loft of the club to get the ball up in the air. That's why there's lots of loft on it. Trust that loft and don't try to help it up in the air. That's why I see a lot of times that I see people with the wedge, they try to help it up in the air. So they do that with the wrist at impact. Well, what that's going to do is that's going to make that flange go up, and that may be resulting in some of what you have going on as well. All right, so David W. here. It's 4:21 right now, so I'll probably just go another 10 minutes or so. Well, I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can here. So David W. says, I'm at the range right now. Clay was just talking about pushing off the right foot in the last video. Sorry, I don't watch all of the videos, so I may not know exactly, especially maybe the most recent one. But he says, I'm not setting up, leaning left. I just don't have enough push off in the right foot. Any thoughts? So it sounds like you're not loading up properly. So if you're not having it, you got to have a shift to the right and a shift to the left. So if you think about any powerful movement that you have, so if I was a pitcher, all right, and I'm trying to throw the ball that way, you don't watch any pitchers just do this, do you? You see pitchers, they load up, they turn their back, they're lifting their foot up and they're turning and they're coming in and they're going hard at it. Quarterbacks, you don't see quarterbacks just kind of, they're on their front foot and they're just, unless they're Aaron Rodgers, I guess. But most guys that are, if you watch Aaron Rodgers throw a Hail Mary, like he's not just going like that. He's rearing back and he's really he's loading up and then he's getting a weight transfer to his lead side. So I'd make sure that you're completely loading up. What I'm guessing is happening, you're not getting enough push off from your trail side because you're not loading up. So I would try to feel like you're getting 100% of your weight on your trail foot as you're loading up. And that's going to allow you to feel like when you're pushing back that you're putting 100% effort into the ground. You're pushing into the ground to push your hip back as much as you can. And then now you're going to feel like you have something that you're going to be able to push off to get to the lead side. So that's what I would definitely be looking at. So hopefully you're still at the range. I know you posted that 42 minutes ago, but answering as many questions as we can here. Jim says, sorry, got to go. Maybe I'll catch you next time. Office hours looks to be a great idea. All right. Thanks for joining us. What starts the downswing? So what starts the downswing is the club moving in a different direction. So technically, the downswing starts. So here's backswing, backswing, backswing. The downswing technically starts when the club switches directions. That's when the downswing starts. So if you're talking about what gets the things moving in that direction, it starts from the ground up. So you're already, as you're loading up, you're already kind of moving to this side. And then you're going to be pushing into your lead leg, and that's going to be pushing your hips open, and then your shoulders are going to go, and then the arms are going to go, and then the club's going to go with it. But as soon as that club is switching directions, that's when the downswing is starting, and that's starting from the ground up. So if you want to learn how to do that proper sequencing, search downswing on the website. Use the search bar, search downswing on the website. Those first few videos there, how to start the downswing, there's several of them. Go through and work on the drills in there, and you're going to be able to get that sequence better. All right, James S. says, I think I heard Clay say spin angle was 45 degrees. I think I heard you say it was 55. Am I say so? I'm not sure what he's referring to. Spin angle of what? I'm not really sure what he's referring to. I think he might be referring to as like the best spin loft. So that's debatable. 45 degrees is good. Anywhere in between there is going to be good. 50 is a good number as well. It has a lot to do with, like, in some instances, 45 is going to be better. In some instances, it's going to be 55. It depends on the amount of friction that you have on the face. So if it's a dead, dry condition, super dry, and your face is really clean, there's no moisture in the grass is super dry, there's very little nothing interfering with friction at all, you're able to get a maximum amount of friction. The more loft, the better. That spin loft can be really high. It can be 60, 70 degrees and get a ton of spin. But that's not the reality of what happens out on the golf course. The grass, there's moisture in the grass. There's moisture on the golf ball. There's going to be, even if you wipe that off, there's going to be some moisture up on the face. So there's going to be some dirt in your grooves. There's going to be things going on that interfere with that. So to say the spin loft you want to have on every single shot would be 45 degrees or 55 degrees, that's not the reality. The reality is that we don't really know what it is until after you hit the shot. And even then, you don't really know for sure what it is. It's just you look at spin rates of shots and you see what the spin lofts were on those, and you see the highest ones are kind of in this area. But even then, when you're hitting off of a mat, everything's dry. So those numbers are going to be higher than what you see on a golf course. So I just basically say you can't expect to have much spin when you're hitting, when there's more grass and there's more moisture. And if your face is dirty, you're just going to expect there to be less spin. But if everything's dry, if you've ever hit off of a hard pan lie and the ball was still kind of sitting up on a tee for you so you could get the grooves into it real good, and everything was really, really dry and there was no grass between the face and the ball, you probably notice that you get a ton of spin on that. Well, there's nothing in there that's interfering with the face getting friction on the golf ball. So you're going to hear varying degrees, but anywhere in there is going to be good. 45 degrees, 55 degrees, that's all going to be a pretty good area to get spin. But to get maximum, you really don't know for sure an exact number what that is. Hopefully that makes sense. Gregory S. says dynamic loft of 30% less than the built-in loft of the face. Yeah, so dynamic loft, that's what you want. That's torque caliber forward shaft lean. So basically, dynamic loft is another word for forward shaft lean, basically. So dynamic, so if I have a putter here, my putter is 2 degrees of loft or 3 degrees of loft. I'm not sure what this is, but it's old bullseye putter. But if we have 2 or 3 degrees of loft, so this is the static loft on the face. If I lean the shaft forward, now I've got dynamic loft on there. It's actually going to be negative because I'm leaning the shaft forward quite a bit. So that's your dynamic loft. So if I were to hit the ball like that, that's my dynamic loft, is the loft that's presented to the golf ball at impact. So if you're getting, with your clubs, if you're getting 30% off, so if you have a pitching wedge and you have a pitching wedge that's 46 degrees and you're taking 30% of the loft off the face, so that's roughly going to be about 15 degrees, right? That's torque caliber. That's going to be pretty good. So hopefully that makes sense. Stan Levin. All right, so I will write that down right here. This marker. And all right, Stan, I will look into that, buddy. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. All right. Mauricio says, after release, when should the right hand over the left? So pretty much immediately. I mean, that's the right hand's going to start overtaking the release when you release the club. Let me angle this down. All right. So when you're releasing the club, your right hand's underneath, right? Left hand's on top, right hand's underneath. That's in the straight line release. But after that, you're going to start rolling over as you're coming through. So it's pretty much right after the straight line release is when that right hand's going to be overcoming that left hand. That's when it's happening, is at that straight line release position. That's the moment that the right hand starts to overtake the left hand. All right. So Brian B says, I think he means spine angle. Maybe I misspeak earlier. It's possible. All right, and then Stan said about the Vizio. And then Michael C said he missed my answer. Vietnam vet transferring weight. So I'm not sure exactly what one he's talking about. So maybe he's talking about the completely loading up. So if you're having trouble getting to your left side, it might be because you're not completely loading up in the backswing. So you want to make sure if you're kind of staying on your left side the entire time or staying kind of centered, it's going to be hard to get. You're not going to have much to go to your lead side. So it's like what I was talking about. Any powerful movement, if you got a pitcher, he's going to be turning his back, completely loading up, and he's going to be coming in and firing that ball in there. He's not going to be staying on his left foot and then, doing that or staying centered and then going to his lead side, because he's not going to have anything to go in that direction. So you want to feel like you're getting completely loaded up, completely turning away your back to the target, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to fire. Same thing in the golf swing. You're getting completely loading up, and then there you're going to get your weight shift and you're going to explode to the golf ball. So hopefully that helps. Stan just wrote something. He said, is the video that you wrote down on your board, Chipping Made Simple, is the title. Okay, I just need the number. And I'll answer this last one here. Wayne, this will be the last question here. Wayne says, best drill to hit against a firm left side. That's going to be all of the compression line drills. So working through the compression line section, that's getting to this. So working through the compression line section is going to get you to that. Because if you're bumping out, so if you're bumping way forward, it's going to be really hard to get to a nice firm left side. So you want to get to where you're here, and at impact, everything's in a nice straight line. Your body's nice and opened up, and then that's going to allow you to come around and get to a nice full finish in a firm left side position. So work through that compression line section. The entire course is going to be the best thing for you. So one more here. This is going to be the last one, just because there's one more up here. And I don't want to leave harm and hinder out. They asked, I've always suffered from blocking right, which constantly gets me into trouble. So if you're blocking the ball out to the right, what I see most of the time is people getting stuck when they're blocking the ball out to the right, or they're just getting this club is just working from the inside too much, and that can come from getting stuck. So if you get your arm kind of behind you too much, see how that club's kind of dropping behind me? So what you want to do in the downswing is try to feel like your elbow is coming more in toward your belt buckle, and that's going to help you get everything more out in front, your hands more out in front of your body instead of behind your body and swinging too much from the inside. So I'd take a look at your swing. I'd pause it when your arm's coming down into your side, when your arm's coming down in the downswing. Where's that elbow at? Is it kind of behind you? Is it like right here? Ideally, it would be just ahead of the mid-seam of your shirt. So on my shirt here, it's black, so you can't really see, but there's my mid-seam's about right here. So if I'm about right there with my elbow, that's a good place to be. But if I'm back here, I'm going to be getting stuck typically. So I would take a look at that. So thanks everybody for joining me. If you would, Well, I'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time, answer some more questions for you, do some more office hours. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks, everybody.